Welcome to the Be Meaningful podcast, an unrehearsed, unscripted conversation about a real brand in real time, with Brian and Bogey, the founders of Meaningful, an agency that helps brands find a meaningful place in the world. In this episode, Brian and Bogey talk with Karl Van der Waerden, CMO of Gigamon, a company that provides network security and optimization for hybrid cloud systems through something called deep observability. They discuss marketing budgets, how to stand out in a crowded category, and the implications of artificial intelligence for cybersecurity.
Karl, appreciate you making time. This is so nice to have you on the podcast. We've done some homework. We like to take a look at the brands and the guests that we have on. So we have a sense of what is it that you guys do, but it's always great to start off the episode with a few sentences from the guest, kind of like know who you are and what do you do. Just a nice little quick intro before we jump in.
Sure. So Karl Van der Waerden, I'm currently CMO of Gigamon. Been here over 5 years, and Gigamon is a leader in cybersecurity. It's about a $500 million company. And our sweet spot is focused on helping our customers. They're often the largest, have the most complex infrastructure in all verticals, all geos, and really helping them uncover blind spots because you can't measure, you can't secure what you can't see. And so that's really kind of the secret sauce of what we do.
That's nice. Are you also based in California?
Based in California, yeah. The headquarters of the company is in Santa Clara. I'm in Menlo Park. I'm dialing today from my home office.
We could have done this in person. I'm in San Francisco, so.
Oh, there you are.
Oh well.
Oh well. Yeah.
So that was interesting. You know what you were saying, and just the quick synopsis there about in a word, visibility, right? Being able to see into what's happening. I love. When we looked at your website, I love the word observability, and I think it was called deep observability. That kind of fires your imagination, right? That's a fresh set of words. At least maybe not to you or people deep in the industry, the micro industry that you're in, but deep observability is it's like Jules Verne, like it starts to fire your imagination, right? Which is kind of cool. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was intentional. So a little bit of context. So the company's been around for 20 years. We celebrate our 20-year anniversary this year. And in its first instantiation, visibility probably was the word that was being used more. Right. And it was more data center focused. Right. And over the last, 6-7 years, the company's moved progressively to extend that visibility to the hybrid and multi-cloud, right? So all infrastructure, public, private, containers. This is all, again, I don't know how familiar your audience is going to be with the technology, but essentially all forms of infrastructure. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to capture in the repositioning of the company and sort of the brand that went with it, we wanted to capture that new focus and that new capability. And so there is an emerging market called the observability market. And the observability market is really helping, I guess it's a new form of web or application performance management. And so it was a fast-growing space, and we felt like we had a meaningful contribution to make to that space because, again, just to get a little bit technical, most of the tools or the applications that our customers use, companies use in that space takes log data as input, and we provide network data. And so what network data allows those tools to do is it allows them to, as I said, see things that they can't see today, and therefore better manage performance, better manage security. And so our choice of observability was to ride the coattails of this hot market.
Mm-hmm.
Deep was to provide the fact that we go down deep into the infrastructure and we pull out the network data. And so that combination of deep and observability was how we ended up with that. That term.
That's cool, because you said when we started that you can't manage what you can't see, and that, you don't want to cross into like doing a Chicken Little thing, but it does kind of, again, it's the theater of the mind. Like, what is happening that I might not know, right? Yeah. So it puts you on edge. Like, I guess you could say, as long as you're not taking advantage of it, it puts you on edge in a healthy way, right? Yeah. That you're not asleep at the wheel. You don't let your guard down, right?
Right. Correct. And and I'm sure we'll get to this, right? If you look at our campaign, current and, or sort of brand campaign, current and past, and we've had it's probably third iteration in this theme. Mm-hmm. It is about what is it that you don't know that you should be aware of, right? You gotta make sure in the current campaign you don't end up with your hair on fire because it's something going to catch you unawares. Right. In the past, we've used different metaphors. Pants down was one. Don't get caught with your pants down, which was a little bit controversial at the time, but it was very ultimately very well received by the market. We did it in a very tasteful way, but the point was, again, you don't want to be caught unawares, and so we make sure you see everything that you need to see, and only that, because there's too much information. It's kind of, we live in a world of information overload. Yeah, so for sure. It is good to give you only what you need to see, but make sure you see absolutely everything you need to see.
Right. So talk about that a little bit, because that's like kind of where we play, right? In the branding, the marketing, the messaging. Yeah. How did those work? So you said, I'm thinking of this is bad now, right? Like, the campaign that was, I shipped my pants. Like, I shipped them to me. And so that's pretty like sophomore, pretty sophomore humor, but people laughed. I mean, they laughed at that, right? And obviously it's a lighter lift, right? The idea of like, shipping and, direct to consumer, e-commerce and that kind of stuff. But, so that could, if you get too light or frivolous, right, that could kind of take away from the gravity, or I should say the substance of what you're offering, right? The pedigree, like, it could start to make it look silly instead of like really super smart. So whether your pants are down or your hair's on fire, like how is either one of those, did they work better? Obviously, I guess.
They both.
You go from pants to hair.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and so what? Look, you never have enough money, right? So I would say a limited budget, right?
That's our experience.
Yeah, you never have enough, right? And so, especially when you're trying to create a category, which we are, we have to be very smart about our investment to make sure that we got the biggest bang for the buck. And so we were very intentional about using humor. Which can be, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because it can either, potentially offend people, although, we were careful to try and manage that, but still, you got to be, right? That's one. The other is some people just don't find things funny. I mean, everyone has a bit of a different sense of humor. However, as I said before, is that, and I wanted a team in all of these things is to kind of to push the envelope. I said, get me to say no. And which was really a way for the team to try and push creativity as far as they were comfortable with. We were more of a, I would say, conservative company. Mm-hmm. And so when I started, the pants down was the one that, where they came to me and I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is the one that I'm going to say no to. And we did some work with HR and we made sure it was good. And in the end, I think just the concept people were struggling with, in the end, it was very tasteful. It was just people walking around I don't know if
Yeah.
you probably found it on the internet, walking around the office, and they all had suits and, ties, and it was, but then they were all missing pants, right? They were in boxers, and they had their shoes on. And it was just this kind of weird dissonance of
which
like
is
a very
normally,
serious,
normally that's cool.
like, hey, you're missing something, right?
Right.
You're missing something important that you're not seeing, and it's going to cause awkward situations and challenges.
Right.
But the whole point here was really get something that people will take notice of.
Sure.
Because I'd rather something that's a little bit edgy and that people like comment on, they like or dislike, than something that's just generic and bland. Nobody goes intentionally for generic and bland, but what they go for is, we're going to try and be very, specific about what we do. We're going to look, we're going to try and make it look cool, but in the end, it just ends up looking like everybody else's video. Mm. And so we went for something that was very different, and it really worked. I mean, that campaign, pants down, and the current one have significantly outperformed benchmark, and so we got a lot of bang for our buck with these campaigns.
Oh, cool.
Nice. Let me ask you this. I mean, looking at, in the past, what you've done, looking toward the future, one of the questions we like to ask is, what's the dream?
The dream is to create a new category, which is is really an option of, I would say, last resort or last choice for a marketer, because we know that creating a category is a long and expensive undertaking. And so, however, we felt for various reasons that it was necessary to do this. So the dream right now is to build a category, establish ourselves as a leader, and this category becomes a must-have for our target market. So in other words, they need to have, the CIOs, CISOs are waking up and said, I need deep observability and I need Gigamon because they're the best, right? That's ultimately what we're going for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's your typical audience, right? Are you leaning toward enterprise, more like small?
Yeah, we're definitely
curious.
We're definitely enterprise. So I would say global 5,000, global 10,000 is our audience. So we whether in all verticals and including governmental bodies, organizations, pretty much all industry. But they tend, and in all geos, but they tend to be the largest ones because they have the more complex infrastructure, and therefore it's harder to see what's going on. And that's where we can help the most.
We have one of the companies we work for. They're in the data center business, and you look at the trend where everything went from servers to the cloud, and now migrating back. And so, is that creating the hybrid now? Is the hybrid kind of the set place now, or is it just transitional? Is it a trend?
Yeah, hybrid, I think, is going to be, especially for very small or young organizations, they can be, or even mid-size, I think, they can be 100% public cloud now. This is easier than trying to manage your own data center or your own infrastructure. Mm-hmm. However, large organizations, it's impossible not to be hybrid, because you're going to have your own data centers. There are things you don't want in the public cloud for compliance reasons or other reasons. You're going to have typically multiple public clouds, right, for price arbitrage, or the fact that you end up acquiring companies and they have their cloud infrastructure, and so it's just this hodgepodge of infrastructure, and our organizations are like 99.9% hybrid.
Okay. Yeah, and then we were reading. I didn't read the whole article, but there was a Medium recently. It's a very interesting Q&A with your CEO, and he talked about AI. Can you how AI can get in and actually, if if the large language model is vulnerable, it can throw a wrench into the whole AI process.
For sure. Yeah.
Like that's something I hadn't even thought of, actually.
Yeah, and I know he did speak or get interviewed for that.
Right.
I'm not sure what he said, so I'm just go on.
Hey, we can read it. We'll read it right now. No, I'm just no. We haven't read the whole thing, but it looks juicy. It looks like there's some good stuff.
Look, I think, of course, when it comes to large amounts of information or data,
right?
It's fodder for AI, and then there's the good and the bad of AI, right? And the good is obviously it can process at scale,
right,
and do things that humanly not possible, or just can't do at that scale and with speed that's not possible otherwise, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side is, yes, you do get these hallucinations, as they call them, right? Things that are not correct. And especially in a world that we're operating in, where you have to be 100% accurate when it comes to security,
right,
that could cause a problem, right? So I think I'm a big believer in AI and the use of AI, and we're looking at how do we use it internally in marketing to drive efficiency, to help with conversion in the funnel, because I think you get more targeted, and more personalized in terms of your outreach. So I think there's a lot of benefits to it. And then in our product, we're looking at it and how can we help customers? Because, again, our job is to make sure that they see everything, but once they see it, then what do they do, right? Well, we're going to help them with recommendations or other things like that, and that can be powered by AI. So we're looking at it from a number of different dimensions.
Well, I'll jump in. I think it's interesting. The whole notion of AI is, at least to me, it's kind of scary, but I always view the scary route, because you now have no longer just an army of humans who are looking for vulnerabilities. You now have a superhuman, a supercomputer who can find the vulnerabilities and can find a way to get in. And so we're entering a different era when it comes to security. And so if companies don't have that back, they're going to get run over very easily.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about AI is that it's now it's become readily available, and so both the good guys and the bad guys
have
access to it. And so the bad guys are going to be like, great, this is a new tool set that's going to allow us to be even more productive in our nefarious activities. And so yes, you're right. The organizations and vendors are going to have to use AI in order to defend against the AI attacks from the bad guys.
So why don't you guys sponsor a Netflix series where it's AI wars, right? Where it's like good and bad, good guy, white hat, black hat.
If I had that money, Brian, I'd be very happy.
So
it's actually quite affordable. You'd be surprised, by the way.
Really? Okay, maybe that's a good thought then.
Well, everybody has this idea, right? About, a long time ago, decades ago, branded content and all this came out, and it was done really bad. It was like Purina would do it, it's like the point is really, and it's kind of part of that meaningful thing. The point is to really understand what you're in the business of, and then it makes sense to then sponsor or underwrite content that supports that vision, right? So this is a long time ago. Union Pacific, right? Union Pacific, essential railroad, but they were, this is going back, like Cisco was the darling at Wall Street because it was a pure play, right? It was just servers and internet. G3 was taken off and everything. And Union Pacific, while they're necessary, they just weren't sexy to Wall Street. And then they weren't sexy to talent. So those were two problems they were having. yet they had already earmarked, I think it was at the time like 12 million for a 2-year print campaign that was like, there was a tagline that they had called Building America. And it was kind of a rebut to 9/11 about, we're going to get back and but it was also literally the railroad built America. Yeah. And it was kind of nostalgic. It was kind of looking in the mirror and feeling good about yourself, but it wasn't really going to move the needle on those two things, right? It wasn't going to attract people, talent. They're going to go somewhere else, especially toward, tech in the logistics system. They're going to go. So the thought was, what can we do with Building America? And so the idea was, what if it's not about the diesel and steel that literally built America, but what about the ideas and the people that are building what, the American experiment, which is an ongoing thing. So it's current as well as looking back, it's looking forward. And so we had a way to play that out. But again, and so the ultimate, the idea was they had 100,000 rail cars. And to put portraits of both people who had passed away, and I would say the word posthumous, I can't say that word, but it was people who are no longer with us, and people, so it was kind of like a gap campaign where you might take a school teacher or a student that had won a prize for some, purifying water in third world nations, or a new way of teaching, like a Jeffrey Canada thing. And then you'd have Dizzy Gillespie, and you have Bill Gates. And so you have people that, and it just had that portrait, black and white portrait with Building America on it, the logo. And then we were going to have a photographer who did these nocturnal industrial landscapes, and they're really beautiful, eerie in a really beautiful way. And so he was going to photograph all over wherever they appear in the country, these rail cars. And so there'd be a traveling exhibition, a coffee table book. By then, 2 years pass, and you take that 12 million, you roll it into original content, which would be like a quarterly or biannual, every 6 months, an episode of Building America brought to you by Union Pacific. And so each episode would talk about science, education, whatever. And so that's a way, that's just an example of how you can actually, for the same price that they were paying for print, they're actually doing something where they're becoming, you're changing them from a distribution company to a thought leader. Yeah. I think, and putting them right at the front of the conversation about, the change in society and what's good, what's not, how do we handle things. And so that kind of thinking is really cool, and it can immediately it gives you a platform, all of a sudden it's like, boom, here you are. So, like Bogey said, I don't know what the costs are, but it's something to think about. It's cool. And it's an area, right? When you talk about, not that you want to get fixated on AI because everybody is, and everybody's jumping in.
Yeah,
but,
it's getting a little bit,
right. But the idea, of deep observability and seeing, it's just rich. It's a rich area, Anyways.
Well, my question, let me jump in, and I want to dive in a little bit into this, because you say, building out, owning this new category, and I love that. I think that's great. Yeah. I heard of these guys because I did some time in Portland, Oregon, and these guys, New Relic out of Portland, right?
Yes.
And I literally, just for the sake of, shits and giggles, I was just like, I'm going to pull up their website just real quick. And I pull up on their website, and their homepage, it says intelligent observability. So it seems like a lot of people are jumping into this thing. What's your definition of this new category? What does that look like? I'm just curious.
Yeah. New Relic is a partner of ours. And so they, a lot of these observability players and others like Datadog or Dynatrace or Splunk, and some of these companies may be familiar to the audience, but their focus really is how do we provide customers the ability to, in their case, really focus. Tends to be or has been more application performance. So web applications are very complex now because they're very distributed. They're built on microservices. Those microservices can be anywhere. And so figuring out how do you root cause and address any performance challenges, right? So that's kind of where they started. They're starting to do more security now. So we're getting also into kind of how to secure the application infrastructure. And so that's the category of observability. And then where we come in is we say, well, because I said they're getting data from logs, which is logs are generated by applications, right? Developers put it in.
So they're also getting from logs. So they just call it observability.
They're all calling it observability. Now they're intelligent observability. I'm not sure what they're intending by that. Yeah. But basically they're all getting from logs. And so we come along and we say, well, we can give you network intelligence, and that will allow you to do additional things that you can't do with just logs.
Yeah. Well, I remember from my youthful days where I would scan networks, local networks, of course, for testing purposes, and then you'd have all these data packets that then you can dissect and unpack, and then all of a sudden, someone logged into a website without an SSL certificate. There it is. There's the password and username, and you're like, "Whoa!"
Yep, exactly.
You start realizing.
You can see a lot in networks. So that's that is the thing we like about, obviously it's where we come from. But the thing that we like about network data is it's immutable. You can't change it. Basically, network data, whatever goes over the wire goes over the wire. Yeah. The problem with log data is that it can be changed. In fact, that is one of the things that hackers will do as part of their attack protocol is they'll go and modify or suppress logs. And so when you're in the business of security, you want what we call the ground truth. You want something that cannot be changed, and that's the network data. And so it's a very valuable source of information. It's very hard to process at scale because we're talking about terabytes, right? In a very, at high speed. So it's very hard. And that's the secret sauce. So that's why Gigamon has, I lose track now, maybe 150 patents now. So so
you guys do have IP around it. Okay.
That's that makes sense. A lot of IP. That goes into to processing this at scale. So it's very hard to do in a very efficient, scalable way. And that's the kind of the core, the core of the focus of Gigamon.
So I think it's funny, Karl, between you and I think it's funny that Bogey would say "in my youthful days." I just think that's like,
I've forgotten about my youthful days. Still on go.
I know. But so how is like the hair on fire thing? Like, are there conferences? Do you go to like conferences and stuff? And do you have like hair on fire hats and things like what?
So we do. We do a lot of our own kind of events, but we also go to third party like Cisco Live, which you probably know, right?
Data Center World or something like that.
Networking one, or RSA, which is the cybersecurity, or Black Hat. So we do AWS events. So we do these conferences, and so we haven't the Hair on Fire is quite new. So we haven't yet had the opportunity to instantiate that one in a live event, but we did do it with our other ones. So on the Pants Down, we had people with boxers.
Oh, no. Oh God.
We gave away boxers, Gigamon boxers. They were very popular. Sure. Yeah,
that's fun.
So it was great. We had in Vegas, we had an Elvis impersonator doing a custom. This is for Cisco Live at our booth, and he was doing shows, and he was all the rigmarole. But he had he didn't have any pants on either. It was very well received. Very well received.
Commit to the idea, right? I love
it's
that.
funny. Yeah, so you can invite people to like a little happy hour somewhere, and just, there's a little shot. Like so there are drinks where they do little flames, and you can just
there's all sorts of things you could do. That's right.
Oh, gosh. So
it's also
go ahead.
I was going to say, Brian, it's interesting because it's the audience is nerds, right? I mean, it's nerds who understand this stuff, right?
Nerds with whom the buck stops, right? If you're a CIO, CSO, you're like, ooh, okay, you can't make one mistake. Yeah,
no, it's a high pressure world, and so part of it too. I think part of the humor and the appeal and the reason it's worked so well is that it is a very stressful world, and so I actually like to see a little bit of humor. Right, it sort of brings some levity to the situation, and rather than using. So you mentioned this earlier, Brian. I think it's humor that calls attention to something that you might need to pay attention to. Right, that was kind of the whole intent. Right, you're something you're not, but we're not using fear explicitly, which is obviously maybe that's the you might think an obvious approach, but I think we know that security professionals don't really like that. They don't like the fear mongering because it's too cuts too close to to what they do on a daily basis and the pressure that they're feeling. So we find that humor actually works quite well. Yeah. From that perspective, just providing a little bit of breath of fresh air in terms of it's quite a heavy environment.
Is there something that's not working right now? Or that you would want to work better?
Are you talking now specifically to brand or marketing or what?
Well, I can ask.
Yeah, I think so because we're not really equipped to discuss within the product what's working, not working, or that kind of logistics and operations and that stuff. So it's really about because I almost with every marketer that really believes in what they have or what they're doing, there is this frustration, this ambient thing about if the world just knew what I know, if they could hear this one thing, So I guess the question is there something that if the entertainment, the creative part of what you're doing is working, it's getting people's attention. Is there something that you wish was working as well or just was working better or people knew that they don't?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's always things that could be better, right?
Sure.
This kind of endless list, and and even at Gigamon, I say we tend to default to what can we do better? How can we improve? Right. And so I would say because, what is frustrating is that because it's a new category, it's still, I said, not a budget line item. People they don't go into the annual planning and I got to get my deep observability. I said, to answer Boogie's question, that's the dream. I want every CIO, CISO to say, I got to have my deep observability in my infrastructure. That's not the case today. So it's still very much so where I said we're a 20-year-old company, but we're operating like a startup. And so the cloud, the cloud or deep observability offering has been growing, triple digits over the last few years, and so it's very encouraging. But it's still a tiny part of the market, and so I mean, still overall, let's say infrastructure spend still really small. So even though we're the leader, and we have a number of analyst reports now that have identified the category in the TAM and the vendors, and Gigamon is definitely a leader. It's still, in the grand scheme of tech spend, it's still a drop in the ocean. And so what's I think the most challenging thing, Brian, is just when we have that right conversation with the CISO,
Yeah.
right, and they get it, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, how come I didn't know about this?" And we will have this conversation sometimes, probably the most frustrating thing, with customers of ours who are spending already millions of dollars with us for kind of more of like what we used to do more traditionally in the data center, and they don't know what we can do in the cloud. And that's probably the most frustrating. They're spending literally millions of dollars with us every year, and the senior buyers there don't know all that we can do for them in the hybrid and the multi-cloud. That's probably the most frustrating thing.
Yeah. So really, it's being able to draw a line around, because everything's connected, right? Like, no pun intended, but I mean, everything's connected. So it spreads very quickly into some comprehensive, security, observability, operational efficiency, optimization thing. And, but there's a very specific thing, and that's being able to see into, deeply into what's happening in real time.
Yep.
Whether you're in your on location server or whether you're in the cloud. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask how, and it sounds like you've kind of already started talking about this, but how many of your clients come to when there's a problem already, right? It's reactive versus proactive.
Yeah. That's also the double-edged sword of the Gigamon technology. It's a very it's very, very high quality. I mean, we obviously battle tested this at the largest organizations. We have like 90% plus of the Fortune 100 as customers, to give you like the that's, and it goes down from there, right? The scale of right. It's been battle tested for a long time, and therefore it just doesn't. I mean, it's not never say never, but it rarely breaks or has a problem. And so customers just set it, like there's a term like set it and forget it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem is like it just runs. And so typically they won't come to us because there generally won't be a problem. Where we get into challenges, with customers and deployments is when they're new to the product, or we're deploying it in the hybrid multi-cloud, and there's many, many other technologies involved. And so you have to kind of root cause, when we're implementing it. But often when it's up and running, it just runs.
So that's interesting, because one of the things that a lot of marketers don't do, and some of them are scared to do, and some of them just it isn't the way they think, is to part of your brand narrative is your conflicts, right? Like in any story, right? Any good story, there's a protagonist, an antagonist, a goal, a conflict. And what you were just saying about it just runs, right? And it reminds me of John Deere, which I worked on twice, actually. One of their struggles, I mean, they don't see it as a struggle, but when you try to talk about the brand in a more of a story type narrative, one of the things is they're made so well they don't break. Nobody replaces them. Nobody. So we actually did a commercial where a guy comes in every year, looks at all the new models, and buys a hat and goes home. And so the dealer's like, "Geez, Ed, come on, man, buy a tractor." But he's still got a 1963 Model D, and it's working just fine. So it makes the point in a playful, memorable way, because it's story as opposed to just a headline. It makes that these things just, they last forever,
long time,
and I mean, we couldn't get them to do like, there's only 17 hoods left for our 1924 model, whatever, like just like news about old inventory, because people still get replacement parts for like 60, 80-year-old tractors. But that idea, also that, I mean, you could see a little kind of public venting that like, this works so well, it's like, cause it's kind of, it's a way of just dealing with, I wish I wish everybody knew, and I wish everybody had this, and when it works so well, nobody's complaining about anything, you know. And it just kind of goes. It
Yeah,
just
I like
goes.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah. We,
Yeah.
you know, we can't sell anymore because the stuff that we sold just works so well. Right?
But I mean, it's in a way, it's a
Can't sell
compliment.
that in business, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's a compliment, like, right? It's the
Yeah.
flip side of the hair on fire. It's the
Yeah.
opposite, and it's
Yeah.
interesting because creatively, it's always attractive or juicy to like dramatize the problem, because that's where the fun or the drama is. I mean, even if you're dealing with homelessness, every single creative team is going to want to show somebody sleeping in their cardboard box, because that's the problem, and that's where the drama is, and that's where the shock is. But
Yeah.
you're not solving anything unless I go into the copy, and then, you know, it becomes cerebral. Like, I have to say, okay, so what you're saying would improve what I'm looking at, but I'm left like photogrammed in my brain, in my limbic system is like the problem, right? And so I'm not saying that to say that, you know, hair on fire is you're photogramming in my mind the problem, because that's not the takeaway I got from the website and stuff. But it is hard to dramatize the solution or the lack of a problem, you know, because then it gets cerebral, and now you're asking people, and that's front brain, and where brands really are built is in the emotional center, in the belief systems, you know, and so that it's just super interesting.
I agree.
Yeah.
You guys are obviously focused on brand and stories, and so I would say, in what have you seen that works well in the world of tech? Like what's a great brand or brand story or campaign?
Well, you kind of touched on it when you said, you know, we don't want to look like everyone else in the category. And I think the trap, the default for a lot of marketers is to try to look like, you know, kind of try to look like one of the players, right? And so there's a kind of a, you know, imitative derived kind of thing. Everybody, like, for example, in the data center space, right? You've got racks of, you know, servers with blue and green and blinking lights, and their windowless rooms, and their long hallways, and their people wearing, you know, like starch shirts buttoned in, and they've got an iPad or a laptop, and they're looking at everything, and that may seem de rigueur, but it's kind of like they're all the same. And so, like, with our data center client, Server Domes, we were showing, you know, more nature, more like more editorial, right? Like if there was a story, if they were featured, or at least part of a story that was in like the Sunday New York Times or Wired magazine, what would that look like? Would it be like racks and racks with lights blinking, or would it be something that has to do with sustainability? And especially because, you know, what's shocking is AI, or I should say machine learning at large, right? But machine learning on top of G5 and stuff and the Internet of Things, that's all driving the demand for compute. Like, it's doubling every 2 months. Yeah. And so you see basically the infrastructure that exists was never built, was never designed for AI. So they're like dipping things in ice baths, and they're doing this and raising floors and doing, but basically they're trying to prop up a system that can't keep up, and they're mediating problems that the infrastructure itself is creating. The heat it's generating, the power that it's consuming, the water that it's consuming, and the backlash, the NIMBY backlash of like, I don't want a hyperscale in my yard, in my backyard, you know. And yet, meanwhile, Microsoft and OpenAI, they're you know, committed $100 billion to build a hyperscale in the next 4 years, there's a good chance in 48 months that's going to be obsolete. The minute they pack up the hammers, it's going to be shit. It's not enough. And so that sensibility is what we're selling, is that more anthropological, like we're in a new era now and we need to rethink infrastructure. It's got to be smaller footprint, more sustainable, more distributed, less like buying an island off of Iceland and making a data center. That kind of fantastical kind of thinking is really, semi-laughable. And you're like, let's get smart here. And so our client, the data center, it's kind of turning into their podcast. I apologize. But it's, they have these geodesic domes.
He's doing a proper pitch.
No, but I'm saying the geodesic domes that use natural law, right? It uses physics. It uses thermal buoyancy and airflow. And 92% less water is needed to keep these things cool. When
no HVAC. That's the cool part.
In the heat dome up in the Northwest in like 2021, right? It was 116, 117 degrees. The data center was operating at like 82, 84 degrees internally with no air conditioning, And so that kind of stuff, getting that across to people that like, this is not just a different mechanism. This is what we have to do because what we're doing isn't working and is certainly not the forward path, And so I think, and to us, that's really part of, and the reason we do the podcast is meaningful is only really understood when it's applied specifically to a company or a brand, because it's not like when people hear the word meaningful, they think, oh, social cause or something. No, it's more of what is your place in more of an anthropological context, right? Like you guys, you're in a world now, right, where this observability is not like a nice to have, it's a must have, right? And how is that imperative conveyed in the larger context of what's happening in the world, right? And what's happening in society. And I think always having that context is important. And then complementing that with what's happening in humans, which is immutable. It never changes, right? And that's the deep desires, the fears, the dreams, those kind of things, and understanding that when you message to somebody, what you're really trying to target is their belief systems, because behavior follows belief. So behavior, you don't have to modify behavior. You just people need to understand and believe something about the brand, about themselves, about the business, about the world. And a lot of times the cool thing about that is a lot of people don't know what they're already holding as a belief because it's kind of been formed background. And when it's spoken to them or presented to them, there's an immediate agreement because they already believe that already sounds right to them, but now they're conscious of it, right? It's cognitive. So now it's in the analytical center, and they go, amen, brother. That really resonates with me. And I think in your messaging, thinking about those things too is important. Yeah. So anyways, that was not a direct answer in terms of who's doing a great job, but
you got to some of the elements, which I agree with. Just telling a story, what's the context? How do you tap into people's belief systems? And having that larger view of the world. And so I said, for me, I think where we sit in terms of our brand and our story is, I said, this world, which is the reason cybersecurity has, continued to grow is because the world is digital, and therefore all of the value, right, of people's livelihoods, companies' livelihoods are tied up in the digital world. And so you can, obliterate value digitally now. Right. And it's kind of scary to think. And I know, I'm sure we've all had some sort of personal experiences with this. And then you realize how important the job, and it's not hyperbole, but I mean, our job is really, and especially when it comes into kind of like government and we're deeply embedded in government and all of the agencies. It is life and death, and our stuff goes into the field
new front lines,
right? And certainly livelihood, right? So it's a very, I mean, you don't think about it too much. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, right.
But and then coming back to how we want to position ourselves, we want to position ourselves as helping. We want to be of help, and but in order to get there, we have to tell the story of, I said, grab people's attention with a little bit of frivolity to say, hey, a little bit of humor, inject a little bit of humor into your day, and then get people's attention, and then tell the serious story of, hey, we can help remove. You talk about feeling that uneasy feeling that you have, that you're not quite sure what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so we can remove that feeling by giving people certainty that they will see everything that they need to see.
Yeah. Was that I'm trying to think, was that Casper Weinberg or something that said, or no, Donald Rumsfeld, right? Who said, we don't know what we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
That was
there's something to be said about shadows, just, and that's a whole, it's an interesting theme and topic if we've dive into that. But okay. Well, this has been great. We're definitely kind of up here at time. I don't know if there's any final thoughts or anything else.
No, I mean, it's been a good conversation. I mean, this is, it's obviously it's a topic we spent a long time talking about, but I think for me, it is, I'll say this, because this podcast is focused on brand and the importance of it. It is one of the things I'm probably proudest of at Gigamon, is that in spite of budget constraints and COVID and everything that happened, we were able to maintain a healthy investment in telling in brand and telling the story. And it's one of those things that often gets cut for kind of the short term of demand and generating leads, and that's all important. But I'm a big believer in brand. It has longevity, right? It helps you build your presence in a market, makes everything else easier. And so one of the things that I said I'm very thankful for, and I think the team has done a fantastic job with all of these campaigns and everything that they've done, is that we have, I think, grown our presence in the market and our value as a company. And a lot of that I'll attribute to the work that the brand team has done. Well,
and just as a final note, that Shane or anybody who's listening, it's like you right, 90+% of Fortune 100 companies. So bump that budget. Bump. There's plenty in there for that budget, Karl.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Appreciate that.